everyone, Kareem right here. Today we have Mr. Pedro Nery, who is the founder and CEO of Future Soccer Inc. Pedro, how's it going?
Hey, Kareem, thank you for having me here. Yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. So, we met just a couple of days ago at the Toronto FC versus Inter Miami CF2 MLS Next Pro game. It was nice to meet you in person first before connecting online. So it's awesome to have you on now.
For sure, for sure.
Can you just take us back in time before Future Soccer was created? How'd you get involved into the beautiful game?
Oh man, this goes way back. So, sorry, I'm originally from Brazil, and in the 2002 World Cup, I remember we won the World Cup, which was the last one, and the game that we played against England, and Ronaldinho scored a crazy corner kick. Oh, not corner kick, sorry, a crazy free kick. That was something that again I just fell in love with the game. In Brazil, it's not too hard to fall in love with the game, and after that, I just played and I played an okay level. But again, after a while, when I was about like 16 years old, I decided to move out of Brazil and I decided to come to Canada. And back then, there were not many clubs around here. And I played a little for Toronto Lynx here in Canada. But after that, I just decided to go and do sport management at Humber College. And after graduating in 2013, I went back to Brazil to do my master's degree in soccer management. And after completing the master's degree there, I was able to work for FIFA in the World Cup in Brazil. And it was somewhere where I was able to get a lot of connections. I got to learn a lot from it. And yeah, in my master's degree as well, there were lots of well-known agents in Brazil, and I was able to connect and see a little bit of the work. And that's when I decided to come back to Canada, open Future Soccer in 2015, and here we are.
Nice. That's amazing. You mentioned the World Cup. What year were you working in the World Cup?
So that was 2014 in the World Cup in Brazil, in São Paulo. So yeah, I was mainly in the São Paulo venue, which all the games that happened there, I was mediating the meetings before games. So I was in charge of like talking to both federations to make sure they're both okay with everything going on, right? So
Got it. And did you have prior experience before, being in this opportunity, or was it a first time hands-on situation where you were learning on the go?
no, so actually I was working with a company called Fute Gestão in Brazil, which was a sports marketing company, and I was actually one of the co-founders as well there, and we're able to work with a few professional soccer clubs around Brazil, and yeah, from there, again, I was able to apply for that job with FIFA and got selected, right? So
Understood. And just for the viewers that come across this video, when you say you were dealing with both federations, what does that look like, sound like when communicating with federations? Is it high intensity? Is it a lot of work, or is it very calm? What are the communications like? Is it coordinating where they're supposed to be, or just a little bit more insight for the viewers?
for sure. So it was very, very quiet. It was not very like, agitated or anything like that. So again, it was things like let's say one federation wants to the pitch to be watered before like 4 hours before the game. The other federation wants like 2 hours before. So again, we would have to find a middle ground and see what would work for both. But yeah, it was very simple, very easy, very quick meetings as well, just to make sure they all understand, they know what time they have to be in the stadium and all those things, right? So it was very straightforward.
Understood. What was, one of the biggest challenges that you faced in 2014 working with FIFA?
Well, again, it was an unreal experience for myself to be involved in there, and I was very fortunate to get that gig and work for them. And again, I feel the biggest challenge for me was just my age at that time. I didn't have a lot of experience, and I was dealing with big players and big federations and all these things. But all in all, I feel it was amazing. Again, one of the greatest experiences of my life, and the challenges was just there for like the first week or so. After that, I felt pretty comfortable, and it was all good.
Nice. So a year later, you start Future Soccer. Why? and how did you start it?
Okay, so I wanted to be a game changer in the agency world. And I say that because, I've played the game myself. I know how many agents were before. I know how agents were here in Canada before as well, where um, for the reputation of agents nowadays, it is a little harsh because of how things were dealt before here in Canada. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to make sure that people see that there are agents who are transparent. There are agents who do a good work and honest work, right? So that's how we see Future Soccer as a family. All of our players, they are part of the family, and we really value that. And that's what I wanted to implement and do different than most agencies across North America. And I saw that there was a lot of loopholes in Canada because um, most of these agencies, they were not offering a full service platform, and that's what I wanted to do different here. So I said, like, let's open Future Soccer, and let's offer that to players where they're going to have digital marketing, they're going to have PR management, so they can have like press releases sent to the press, and that way increases exposure, right? Let's make sure that the player has ongoing communication with the agents all the time, right? So here at Future Soccer, we make sure that we're always in constant communication with the player, with the family, and making sure they are treated well and fair. Also, like, we invest in our players as well. So when we have to take players for tryouts, or if they need soccer cleats or anything that they need to improve their performance, we are there for them, right? We also do video analysis with our players where we show them, areas that they can improve, also areas that they're doing well. So again, the full service platform was something lacking here, and we saw that as a great opportunity for us to come in and do things different.
Absolutely. I got to see it for myself. You were at the game talking to one of your players, and it's nice to see that. And, as mentioned before, that transparency is key. Before we met, I looked at the website for Future Soccer before meeting you. This is a while ago, and it's so cool how the world works. But um, besides the agency standpoint, what other services do you guys provide to create opportunities for players to go pro or to sign to the agency?
Right. So besides the agency side of things, we do a yearly combine here in Toronto. We do want to expand, and we want to have more combines in other cities. But these combines essentially they are for showcasing purposes. We had the last one right now here in Toronto, and we had lots of clubs coming in, lots of scouts to watch the players, and again, those are great results for us because we're able to see how they do in those kind of situations as well. And we always get to select a few players from there. We end up signing them. So again, we had a few players like Mason Petrucci that now plays for Toronto FC. He was in our previous combine, and we identified him there because again, for us, even having our like scouting department, it is impossible to be in every single OPDL game or League One game or everywhere where we can see prospects. And a combine is a place where we can see lots of people in one place, and we're able to see also how do they do when they're under pressure, because in a combine you get all these scouts watching them, and it is important to see how they perform under pressure. And that's why I feel it's a great opportunity for players to showcase themselves, and also for ourselves to identify talents and bring them on to the Future Soccer family once we see a prospect that can actually reach that goal and really go where we expect players to go.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's amazing to provide opportunities for upcoming players, and for you guys to be another pathway for players to go pros is amazing. I've played myself, so I know how important those sorry, what's it called again?
Combines.
Combines, how important combines can be, and what opportunity it could bring. With saying that, how can players that come across this video um, connect? Like, do you guys like have a portal for players to sign up? Like, how does that work? Just for the viewers that are watching, so we could navigate them to your platform.
Absolutely. So on our social media, we always advertise prior to our events, letting them know, the dates, times, and all that. But also, like, even if you're not able to participate in a combine, we do have like one of the pages on our website where a player can fill out a form and can show, can send us their YouTube video where they are right now. And our scouting department will take a look. They will analyze and see if it's someone that we see, that is a good prospect. And if so, then we're going to get in contact with the player and the family of the player, and then go over the process of like, showing them who Future Soccer is, and also what it's needed from the player for us to move forward, right?
Understood. Guys, I'll have everything linked in the description down below for Future Soccer so you guys could check it out. With saying that, going back to the agency side of things, how many players do you guys have signed to the agency currently?
So right now we have 46 players signed with Future Soccer. Lots of players in Canada, some in the United States, some in Europe, lots of players in Brazil as well. We do have an office in Brazil, and one of our business partners coordinates all the Brazilian players in there as well. So it is good for us to have those two markets very well developed under like our umbrella, right? So
Understood. For my knowledge, because I've looked into to the agency side of things or intermediary, um, how do you guys go about things? Because I know that it's like there's like a 10% cap on intermediaries taking from a player's contract. So how do you guys go about the percentages from a player's contract standpoint?
so that's good that you asked that question, because that is something that we're very proud of ourselves in how we do things, because we're one of the only companies here in North America that only charges the percentage on that when the player makes over $40,000 a year. And it is important to mention that there are not many players making over $40,000 a year in leagues like CPL or leagues like MLS Next Pro. So lots of these players we have for years, years and years, and we're investing, you know, um, not just time, but also we're investing resources, financial resources on these players, because we do see them going the next level and, getting those results back to the agency as well.
Understood. For my knowledge sake, this is a personal question that I want to know.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything like behind the scenes that agencies do? Is there like certain systems? Like, are you guys connected to FIFA? Do you guys have like a FIFA login or access to like connect players and sign them up? Right? Like, how does that stuff work? Is there
Right.
when you're registering a player to FIFA? Like, I'm not too sure of what I'm talking about because I'm learning from you in regards
Yeah.
to this point. Like when you guys find a prospect, you guys like, and there's a team interested in this player. What's like the step by step process to getting this player set up?
Again, so before there used to be a term called like FIFA agents, right? And you were able to register yourself or the agency under FIFA, and you were able to also register the players under a system. And
Mm,
that in 2013, I believe, was changed. Now you do need to be certified, and you do need to be licensed in every single federation or country that you operate. So, for example, we are licensed in Brazil, we're licensed in US, we're also licensed in Canada, and some places in Europe. So again, let's say in Brazil, for example, the system is a lot more developed than the system here in North America. So in Brazil, we do have a system we log in. Every single contract we have on the player, we do need to put it there. Also, agents in Brazil, they are, um, again, it is something mandatory for agents in Brazil to have some sort of like insurance policy that we have to upload there. So we do need to have an agent insurance policy, which it's somewhere that it's not many countries that do enforce that. In Brazil, it is one of those countries. Here in North America, the process is a lot simpler. It's somewhere where, with the Canadian Association, for example, the federation here, it is something where when we sign a player, we send over to their department the contract. So they do have that on file, and they know that we are the legal guys who represent the player. And that's pretty much it. So it's something super straightforward and very simple. But I do think that, like there are other countries where the systems are a lot more developed, right?
yeah, understood. That makes sense. Even like I know with even getting, I think it's your license as an agent in Canada, you just pay $500 and they do a background check and like that's it. You don't need to do a course or anything like Europe. So I
Yeah.
I know we're not at Europeans level, but it makes sense. There's not a lot of people trying to be an agent, so it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, but it is important though to have a course, because there are many people starting out, there are many people being agents, and they're not following protocols, they're not following the right patterns, and that is one thing that also we're very lucky to have that background in Brazil as well, in other countries where we did have to take the course, we did have to, do a test and pass the test to get licensed. So it's something where, again, I do see this being forced in the future, but
Yeah.
right now, as you said, there's not a lot of demand, so I don't think it's necessary. And of course, we do have a lot of things to work on here in Canada, so we do need to prioritize things first, right? And that is not a main priority, I would say, in the Canadian soccer system, right? Like, yeah, I think there are many other priorities.
Yeah, I agree with you. Would you agree with me that one of them is like access to fields or good quality fields is one of them in Canada?
I think Canada is pretty good with fields, actually. I do think that compared to other countries where you
Oh
don't
yeah,
even have grass, and it's somewhere where you have so many talented players, like Brazil, for example. If you look at it, like some fields are very poor conditions, but you get talented players coming from there, right? So I think that honestly, the biggest point I believe Canada soccer should work on is on the youth system, is to actually build a place where you can have dorms on your facilities where players can go from every single province and they can go and develop in one place. There are not many people doing that here in Canada, where in
true.
other countries there are many clubs doing it, right? Also, I do believe that every single professional club should have a youth system. They should have some sort of pipeline that brings these players up, right? And they do have some sort of pathway. And I know with the inclusion of League One Ontario with CPL, that is something great. And League One is not just Ontario now; they do connect with the other provinces. But I do believe that there should be, like a youth system for every single professional club, and I do think that we're going to get there at some point. But that should be number one priority, in my opinion, right? Like that's what I think.
Understood. Are you familiar with A&B Academy?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they're doing some cool stuff.
they're doing very very good stuff here, and I'm very happy to see people doing that, right? So I believe they're in Orangeville, correct? That's where.
Uh, I'm not too sure, but they're Coach Basam. He coached me for 4 years, 2016 to 2020. They're building their own facility, and they're
Yeah,
gonna have like multiple fields and stuff. They just purchased 100 plus acres of land,
right.
so they're doing some cool stuff.
That's
Um, there's something I was gonna ask in regards. Would you recommend players getting an agent, or is it important to have an agent as a player?
so that is one thing that I think in North America, it is something that people don't know, but it's what I tell most of the players that contact us is look at it. Every single important player in the world, they do have agents, and it's not for no reason, right? If it was something that is not necessary to have an agent, most players they would not have agents, right? And there are players that they can just sell themselves just for who they are. But again, agents are not just there to get you a contract and sign you there. There are a lot of work in the background, right? And there are a lot of things that has to be done because I tell players once you are a professional athlete, you are a brand. You do need to conduct yourself as a brand. And to manage a brand, it takes work. And you do need to focus on the on field stuff. And somebody needs to focus on the off the field stuff, right? So the biggest challenge we have here in North America is because we do have the school system where if you go play in the US, for example, NCAA, you are not allowed to have, a contract with an agency. Otherwise, you're not eligible to play um, in the NCAA. So it is something where the player has to make a choice. So do I sign with an agency or do I go get free education somewhere? Right. So it is something that because of that, it is some sort of like um, barrier that we have to face. But at the same time, like I do believe that if a player wants to become professional and they want to make sure that they get everything they deserve, they should get an agent. And it's something that if it's not ourselves but other agents, there are many other good agents in Canada as well. So it is something that I do advise players to do have an agent behind because again, you can focus on playing football, which is the most important thing, while somebody who's a professional takes care of the rest, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Pedro. And I think for young players that are watching this, that I think they don't aren't necessarily aware of it until they become a prospect to an agency or to a pro club. That and having an agent is something important. Again, as you mentioned, to focus on the field and allow your agent to help you with managing the things off the field. As young players, we're not aware of how important off the field things are as to
Yeah.
compared to on the field as well. They're both equally important, to be honest, to me, my opinion. Um, and then with saying that, just leading towards the end, what are three things that you would say is the most challenging thing to manage and operate in a soccer agency?
Again, we're not dealing with like products, we're dealing with people, right? So it's something that everyone's different, everyone wants a different sort of treatment, everyone has their own strengths and also their own challenges. And we do need to know how to operate in those ends. And we do need to make sure we get the best out of the athlete, but at the same time, improve those challenges so that the athlete can, have a better performance on the field as well. I do also think that, on the management side, we do have other agents like working in the agency, and we do want to make sure that everyone follows the protocols, everyone does the future soccer way, which we call, because it is a way to include the player with us as part of the family and treating them as family, because it is something that I'm sure if you talk to some of our players and you ask how we are with them, I'm 100% sure that they will say this, right? So it's something that we want to make sure that they feel that like they're home, right? That's the main point.
Understood. So, Pedro, can you share with us the whole process of once you find a prospect, a quality player? What's the whole process that you guys go through?
For sure. So once like our scouting department sends us a prospect, we get in touch with them and their families, and we have an initial meeting just to introduce the company and show the services that we provide. And we talk about career planning, which is one of the main services that we provide as well, video editing, digital marketing, PR, and everything that is covered throughout their career. Once they decide if they want to sign with us, um, of course, like after that, we send a sample contract so they can take a look and see how that looks like. Let's say they do like it, they want to sign with us, we bring them on. So we have a meeting with the player, and if the player is under 18, then we have with the player and the family, and we do a career plan together where we make sure that we are on the right page, and we make sure that we are doing a 5-year career plan for these players where we see a pathway and we're doing what it needs to get there. Right after that, we make sure we get a highlight tape for the player, and it is something where we build a profile, we build a highlight tape, so that we have everything we need once we need to start connecting with clubs, and we need to get these players out there, and we need to show like, hey, those are the players we have. Because the thing is, like the transfer window here, they start in January, but we start sending players in like September, right? So these clubs they ask me like, hey Pedro, like those are my needs, and do you have anybody? So I have a list of players that I send to clubs, and of course it's strategic, right? Like I cannot just send every single player to a club. Sorry, it is something that I need to make sure which player profile fits that club, right, and what makes sense or not. So it is something where when we have a Canadian Premier League request that we have a certain players that we offer. When it's a MLS request, there are other kind of players that we offer. When it's in Europe, then we have to look at passports and so many things. So again, we need to make sure that before those times we have all the necessary, documents and everything we need to start showcasing these players to these clubs, right? So yeah, that's usually how the process works. And once we do that, of course, the main goal is to get them signed somewhere, get them their first or other professional contract, and from there work their brand and make sure their exposure is good, and that we're following the career plan and things work the way that we want, right?
Understood. Just to give a little bit more context on the transfer market, like when I hear that, from my personal knowledge too, when I hear that, I hear this is an opening when agents and clubs work together to transfer players. But what goes into it? Is it as simple as that now clubs are able to make the transfer, or is there more to it?
So again, usually how it goes, it's either us reaching out to the clubs or the clubs reaching out to us. So we built like a good network of clubs where right now we have lots of clubs that they come straight to us and say, "Hey Pedro, like, do you have a center back?" Or "Hey Pedro, like, we do need a box to box with those specific like requirements," right? So we do have to find a player that fits those profiles, and from there, like let's say the club is interested, and then we have to get back to the player and say, hey, we offered you here. That's how your contract's gonna look like. We can, ask for this. The club might be willing to give this, like, and then from there we start the negotiation process where we have to make sure the player's happy, because at the end of the day, the players are clients, so we have to ensure that the player has everything they need, right? So
Understood. That means you guys have an amazing track record for clubs to be coming back to you guys with saying that.
oh yeah.
Are you guys who are you guys communicating with in regards to the clubs? Are you guys communicating with the scouts, the coaches, the sports director? Like, who's usually the main contact? I know it's different for every club, but who do
Yeah,
you?
it is different from every club. Here in Canada, I believe it's mainly the directors. MLS, it's more head scouts or directors as well. Europe is usually head scouts. They do follow the system very. They have a methodology, right, in Europe where it goes every single step first. So you show to the scout first, they'll analyze if they like, then you go to the director, then you talk numbers, you talk those things. But first, you need to make sure that the profile is an interesting profile, right? So by that, you do need to get to those departments first. So it depends, and it varies from club to club, and it also depends on the relationship I have with each of them, right? So yeah,
Understood. I apologize for the timer. I don't have an account with Zoom, but
yes.
um, what market do you like working in the most? Do you like the US, Canada, Brazil, or Europe? What's your favorite market to work in?
That's a tough question. I like working all of them, but again, I do think that the MLS is our main focus. It is where we want to build a strong base, and we want to make sure that we dominate this market. So it is our main focus is the MLS. We do see the Canadian Premier League as a great start point. It can serve as somewhere where it's just like a stepping stone for players, where they showcase their talents, and from there, just like Lucas McNaughton, that we're able to get from Pacific to Toronto FC, where after a great season in the CPL, we are able to make that move. So it is something that we encourage to do with young players, and again, it's all about pathways and what we see for each one of them, right? So
Understood. Yeah, our focus right now is the US market and what we're doing. We'll talk a bit about it after. But from my perspective, not knowing the numbers like you do agency wise, is that I don't know how the CPL is money wise, like revenue wise, but for like as an agency having an agency, but I feel like by 2026, the World Cup coming to Canada, US, Mexico, I think that will give like a better perspective of like the projections of revenue from like the CPL and how it grows and stuff like that. That's what I think.
I
2026.
agree.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree. I think like it is, a market that is growing for sure, and things are going to change, of course. Also, when you look at salary caps and things like that, that's going to increase. That's going to change as well over time. Just to make sure that right now we build a foundation, and from there we can evolve, right? So and develop.
Yeah.
So that's what I see as well.
I mean, you guys already have the foundation, so you guys are just growing it at this point. So I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
kudos to you, man. That's amazing. To wrap up, I have five fun speed questions.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So, who's your favorite team? Favorite team.
My favorite team is São Paulo FC from Brazil.
Hmm. Um, what about your favorite team in the CPL?
Oh, that I cannot.
No, no answer. Okay,
I
good.
love all of them. I love all
Yeah.
of them.
Okay, true. I shouldn't have asked that. My fault. What about favorite player?
Um, favorite player, favor our players or favor like in the world?
Global.
Okay, yeah, because our players, like I just like all of them the same way, so
Yeah.
there's no way I can say that. But globally, um, I would say Cristiano Ronaldo, and just because of the way that he works off the field, especially,
Mm.
I do really see a lot of value, because you can really tell that the guy really works,
Oh yeah.
uh, and that is something amazing. I think if he's in that level and he's working that hard, that shows players that, like, if you want to achieve those things, you never stop working. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So yeah,
100%. What about your favorite food?
my favorite food, man, I would say paella, which is a Spanish dish with
Mm.
seafood. For me, that's my favorite.
And the last one. What about your favorite artist musically?
musically. Uh, Interesting. I'll have to go with, um, man, it's tough because if I say Brazilian artist, not many people will know, right? So I'll have to
Canadian, come on, give
choose
me something Canadian.
a Canadian one. Oh man, okay.
Or no, it doesn't have to be Canadian. I mean like Canada or US.
Or US.
That's
Uh,
that's that's our target our audience. They're from most of our audience is from Canada and US, so
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. So yeah, so if we're doing like Canada or the US, I would go with um, Decemberists.
Sunrise. Okay. I've never what's your favorite song by that person?
It's a folk, um, it's a folk band from yeah, like they still play nowadays, but they're more like from the 2000s and stuff like that. But yeah, there's two or three albums that are like amazing, right? So
Awesome. Well, Pedro, before we go, I want to thank you for taking the time for joining us on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
thank you, Kareem. I appreciate it.